So of course, in the timestamps, what? I can't YouTube anymore. Send help! Bonjour everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. How are you all doing? Today I really wanted to do a current favorites video. It's been ages since I've sat in front of the camera, since I've talked about my favorites, and I miss it. I miss you guys. I miss filming face fronting videos, so I thought today we would remedy. I've got so many favorites to share with you. I want to talk about books, I want to talk about TV shows, but of course I want to especially talk about decks, tarot decks, oracle decks, because we know it's what I love talking about the most. It's my passion. And I've gathered my recent favorites for the last couple of months and I thought I could share them with you. So as per usual, in the description box you're gonna find all the names of the things I'm mentioning in case my French accent gets in the way and you're like, what are you saying? And also you'll find timestamps that can take you to each category in case you are just there for the decks. But if you want to watch the whole video and hear about all the other favorites, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Definitely the theme for these favorites are all the things I've been enjoying for August and September. So without further ado, let's get into my current faves. So how are you? How's it going? Happy October. It's the beginning of October at the time of me filming this. So happy spooky season for all of you who are in the northern hemisphere. I'm in the southern hemisphere, but I don't care. I'm still gonna embrace a spooky season because spooky is a state of mind, right? It's not a time of the year. Even though I'm on a tropical island and it's already full-on tropical summer right now, I'm still gonna be enjoying this month of Halloween, and you'll probably see that in my next favorites with all the decks I'm gonna be sharing. But today I want to talk about things I've enjoyed the last couple of months, and I wanted to start with life joy. Because why not? Life can be tough, it's important to remind ourselves of the little life joys. So two things I wanted to mention. Of course, the first one, it was whale season here in Reunion, Humpback Whales. They come every August, September, October time, arrive from Antarctica to Reunion and to the other islands in the Indian Ocean, Mauritius, Madagascar. In Reunion we are very lucky. This year they've spotted more than 500 different specimens of humpback whales. It's definitely a record. We've never had that many, and that gives me hope because it means that even though the planet is a trash can on fire, there are still some things that are going well, meaning that all the conservation around humpback whales is working, and that makes me so happy. So that has definitely been the highlight. If you don't know, I love humpback whales. They're some of my favorite animals, and we're very privileged here that during our winter, so the last few months, July, August, September, we have had so many sightings. Sometimes if I'm very lucky, I'll see them from my bedroom window far away, but you get the more chance, obviously, if you're by the coast or even if you get on a boat. I've done a couple of boat trips where I managed to see some of them, and I'll try and insert some footage here. Knowing that the waters were very choppy and with my dodgy back, it was a little bit difficult to get footage, so keep that in mind. It was almost like me holding on for dear life to the boat, being like, no, I will still manage to capture the whales. We do what we must for the love of whales, but that's definitely been a highlight. It's my favorite season in Reunion because I just think we're so blessed to be able to see whales, humpback whales. They make me happy. They're such majestic creatures. They come and have their young here every year, and so they stay for 3 months until their little babies grow enough so that they can then handle the journey to go back to Antarctica. And so it's such a joy to see obviously bigger specimens and also whale babies, which are as cute as they sound. So that's definitely been a life joy, and I hope you'll enjoy seeing some of my little footage. It makes me very happy to be able to share that with you today. The next thing that brought me so much joy in the last couple of months is to get into Charmscasting. Now, I need to say a huge thank you to Hyena over at Soul Shadow Tarot. So if you're watching this, Hyena, thank you so much. I'm sending you so much good vibes and so much love. So I'll leave the link to Hyena's channel down below. She's a French YouTuber and she is one of my favorite channels to watch. She's amazing, so I highly recommend you checking her out. I'm just a bit fangirl, and all her courses and everything she offers is just chef's kiss, top quality. And she very kindly sent me a package in those months where she sent me her latest deck, which I'll share with you in a future haul. And she sent me some really cute charms. I already had a little bit of a set of charms from another YouTuber friend, Essie from Semplicimente Essie, who is an amazing Italian tarot reader on YouTube. Again, I leave the link to her channel down below. She is such a sweetheart. For all of my Italian speaking viewers, you should definitely check her out. But we did a deck swap last year and she sent me some charms with that. So I had this little bit of a charm set to start with, and I had started to add my own ones. If you don't know, my mom is a jewelry maker. This is where my love for bling comes from, because my mom is a jewelry maker, so I was born with it, okay? So I fell into the jewelry cauldron since I was a child, right? I was like Obelix, but with jewelry. And so I started to add some charms to that in the meantime. And recently when I received Hyena's package and she sent me some really cute charms alongside with her deck, that was it. The floodgates opened and my love for Charmscasting just started to overpower myself. So that's been so much fun to get into. So if you don't know what Charmscasting is, it's a form of divination, also called as clairomancy, where we throw charms on a board, and depending where they fall and the kind of charms that has fallen, like the shape, the color, what it looks like, what it inspires us, it will give us some messages. And so it's a very intuitive form of divination, but it's also a very fun form of divination. And honestly, I've been missing the fun. I'm going through a little bit of a slump the last few months in terms of my tarot practice, but also just life in general. The last few months were not the easiest months for me health-wise. I was flared up a lot. I was very much incapacitated a lot of the times. I couldn't do very much. Charmcasting just brought a whole lot of joy and fun into my divination practice and into my life at the perfect timing. So been having a lot of fun making boards such as this, where I can throw charms on, and again, depending where they'll fall, it will mean different things. And if you want to see it in action, obviously I'm going to start offering a lot more Charmcasting reading on my channel, because like I said, it's so much fun, I want to share. But if you want to see a little bit more of it in action, if you've never experience it, and if you're curious, there is already one up on my channel. It's the Your Autumn 2023 reading. I'll put it somewhere in the links, so check out the cards. I leave in there and in the description box. If you're curious at seeing this different form of divination, something different than using cards, then I encourage you to check out this particular reading. I've made so many boards that I'm excited to share with you in my future readings. So yeah, charms give me life. Can we take a minute of appreciation for this gorgeous necklace, by the way? My friend Angie gave it to me. Thank you so much, Angie, if you're watching, because I've been loving this necklace so much. Okay, let's move on to TV shows / media stuff. My winter months, which were your summer months if you're in the northern hemisphere, were not the easiest for me health-wise. Obviously, I'm feeling better now. As you can see, I'm on camera and that's all good. But you might have noticed that my uploads were not very regular. I wasn't able to film as much as I wanted because chronic health and chronic illness just got in the way, as it does sometimes. And I really struggled in the last 3 months. Went through a little bit of a hermit phase where I had to retrieve because I was flared up a lot and I had to spend a lot of time bedbound. I actually got a lot of time to watch some new shows. So the first one I'll just talk quickly about, but obviously we had the new season of The Witcher on Netflix, and I'm just personally wanting to hear your thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts for those of you who watch The Witcher, who read The Witcher, or who play The Witcher. What are your thoughts about the new season? I never read the books on The Witcher. I watched all of the seasons on Netflix, and I also played The Witcher 3 on Switch. Honestly, in terms of video game, best video game I've ever played in my life. Like top 3 for sure. The Witcher game blew my mind away. I'm still not finished. I've got all the DLCs to play, which I need to come back to at some point. But if you enjoy this universe of medieval fantasy, monsters and magic and all of that, and you are into gaming, you need to play the Witcher games. And I've played it on Switch and it was fine. You don't need like a PlayStation or anything like that. Even on console, it was great. But the last season of The Witcher on Netflix, I personally found a little bit disappointing. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm very bummed that this is the last season we're getting Henry, because I love Henry so much. Henry's goals. And I'm very sad that he's leaving the season. And I'm also very sad at the fact that his last scenes were not that exciting. I don't know. Like, it was a good season, but it wasn't as good as the previous one somehow. I wasn't as enthralled. I don't know. I'm just very bummed that Henry is leaving, and now I'm worried that they're not going to be able to pick up the pace for the next seasons with the change of actors and stuff. So last season of The Witcher, I was a little bit disappointed, but I'd love to know your thoughts for all of my Witcher fans. The last 3 months we also had Drag Race France, which is obviously, as a Drag Race fan and a French person, one of my favorite things in the universe. I love Drag Race. If you don't know RuPaul's Drag Race, it's a drag queen competition show. It's been going on for years. They compete with different challenges, whether it's fashion, makeup, acting, improv, comedy, dancing, there's everything. It's just so joyful. I mean, I'm here for drag queen domination, and I've said that since the beginning of my channel. Because I've been a Drag Race fan for years, and so the French franchise, Drag Race France, obviously makes me happy because it means we discover French drag queens, and I'm here for that. Like I said, as a drag queen fan and a French person, this is the Venn diagram of my dreams. So I've loved Drag Race France. I thought the queens from this season were fantastic, and I'm so happy at the winner because that was the person I was cheering on from the beginning. That's the person that as soon as they walked in the workroom, I was like, I want you to win. So I'm super happy with the winners this year. They were my favorite, and obviously I won't spoil you in case you want to watch it, but again, let me know in the comments if you watch it, what are your thoughts, who are your favorite queens. The last thing I want to mention is something completely different for me, something I've never watched before and something I never thought I would get into, and that is Dimension 20, which is a show you can find on YouTube and on Dropout TV, which is like a subscription service, kind of like Netflix. A few shows of Dimension 20 on YouTube, and that's how I got into it. And this has completely taken over my life, and I never thought I would be getting into this because Dimension 20 is actually a show where people play Dungeons and Dragons campaign live, and it's recorded, and then the episodes get uploaded on, like I said, YouTube and then Dropout. And I need to tell you first that I never played Dungeons and Dragons, that I never have been into Dungeons and Dragons. It was always something that I knew about. I knew that this is something that fantasy lovers love. I knew that I probably would enjoy it, but I've never been introduced to it, and I don't have anyone here who plays, so it was always something far away from me, D&D. And also, as someone who is completely newbie, I always thought it was super complicated, because that's the vibe that I was getting from hearing people talk about it. I thought it was super complicated game, that you had so many rules, that you had to understand all the different casts and things. And it turns out that even as a non-D&D player, watching people play D&D, especially if they are fantastic improv actors, such as the one who play in Dimension 20, is so entertaining because it's a form of storytelling. And so if you enjoy storytelling, if you enjoy fantasy, if you enjoy being immersed into new worlds and hearing people come up with characters, come up against challenges, find new ways to beat things, find new ways to go around and just be immersed in a story for 5, 6 or 20 hours, depending how long the quests are. This is so addictive. And I need to thank my friend from Inky Swords Tarot. I'll leave her Instagram page down below. Please go and follow her. Because thanks to Moira, I was able to being introduced to the best shows to watch from Dimension 20 in a way that they were easily digestible as a newbie like me, who doesn't understand the rules, who doesn't understand how it works, and who's just here for the story, the acting, the immersion, and just the vibes of just being taken into a new world. So the first show I actually found from Dimension 20 was, again, Venn diagram. I love drag queens, I've said that, and I love fantasy. And on my YouTube watch page, suddenly I see this dungeon drag queens, where some of my favorite drag queens in the world are invited to play for Dimension 20 for this specific D&D show. And so I'll leave the link to that video on YouTube down below. If you're like me, you've never played D&D, you don't really know what it's like, but you enjoy either drag queens or you enjoy fantasy world, fantasy books, fantasy TV shows, go and watch this video. It's 2 hours, it's the first episode of their campaign, and it was the perfect campaign for me to watch as a newbie, because the drag queens who plays are also newbie, and it helps you understand how that works. So that already gave me life, because that was hilarious. It was a hilarious campaign. I mean, you get Bob the drag queen, you get Jujubee, you get Money Exchange, and you get Alaska, which are honestly some of the most famous drag queens in the world. So this is A+ cast. And to see them doing improv and playing different characters and seeing them like evolve in this adventure world was just so joyful. So I watched the first episode and then I was hooked. I needed to know more. So I actually signed up to Dropout TV, where you can watch all the other episodes. And after that, from Dimension 20, I was hooked. I got into their main campaigns, which are not with drag queens, but with this band of actors. Again, I kind of look at as audiobooks. It's almost like listening to an audiobook, except usually it's a lot more fun. The actors are amazing improv actors, and it's this idea of whatever the dungeon master or whatever the players throw, they have to run with it. They have to make it work. They have to continue the story. So if you're getting into this and you are like me, a newbie, and you don't know where to start, I would say watch the Dungeon Drag Queen ones, because it's hilarious. You should also watch Fantasy High, which is the first campaign that the original actors did for Dimension 20. So in Fantasy High, the players are all in this magical high school for adventuring. We have an orc, we have an elf, we have different characters, and they are all teenagers in this high school for adventurers, this high school for questing. And obviously a lot of things happen to them, but it's this mix of like Breakfast Club meet fantasy and adventure and questing, which is so much fun. So definitely Fantasy High as a story, I enjoy it so much, and it's very light and very fun. In the very light and very fun realm, I really enjoyed Starstruck Odyssey, which is another campaign from Dimension 20. This is for my Star Wars lovers and my cyberpunk kind of lovers. If you enjoy stories that happen in space, so if you're a science fiction fan who enjoy any stories in space, far future with cyborg, Starstruck Odyssey is the one for you. It follows a group of misfits, a group of like low-life misfits, like second level criminals who are aboard this spaceship and get hired for little jobs, like little criminal jobs. That's how they make money, until obviously something bigger happens to them. It's another very fun campaign, and it's a nice change from the more fantasy vibe from Fantasy High. For my fairy books lover, my fae lovers, I cannot recommend enough A Court of Fae and Flowers, especially if you're like me and your favorite part about potentially watching D&D games are the storytelling. I'm not a huge fan of the battles. I don't really care for them that much. I can understand them now, but at the beginning, because I didn't understand all the mechanics, I was like, the battles were getting a little bit too much. In A Court of Fae Flowers, there is no battles at all. It's just people acting, people telling the story, people engaging. And this is for all my fairy lovers. The players in this particular campaign all play different members of different fae courts, and they are all gathered for a specific celebration that happens once every 100 years or whatever. A Court of Fae Flowers is a mix between fairy worlds and Bridgerton. So if you enjoy those particular books or particular TV shows or vibes, then you would totally enjoy this particular show from Dimension 20. And the last one I watched was A Crown of Candy, which is Game of Thrones meets Candy Crush, which is as ridiculous and crazy as it sounds. This is the more intense campaign. Like A Crown of Candy is not fun or it's not chill, it's a lot more intense. Like think Game of Thrones, we're talking high stakes, we're talking like court drama, assassinations and murders and things, but instead of being set in a normal world, it's set in a food world where all the different realms are different types of food. So we have the king of Candia and the king of Vegetania and all of those things. So there is still a fun part of it. Different characters play different members of the courts. But in terms of the storyline, I think Game of Thrones, the stakes are very high. Every episode had me on the edge of my seat, and I definitely cried a few times for that one. It's been so lovely to be taken into this world of stories, of imagination. It's helped me like expand my vision of the world. It's brought me so much joy, it's made me cry, it's made me laugh, and if you were on the fence about trying any kind of D&D shows or anything like that, give it a try, the ones that are on YouTube. I'll leave a link to a couple of videos down below. But I think if you're like me, if you enjoy fantasy books, fantasy TV shows, things like that, you could definitely fall in love with it too. Let's quickly talk about books, because my books tie into my deck choices, and so before I talk about decks I want to mention books, because if you don't know, if you've not been following me on Instagram, or if you've not caught any of my community posts, in the month of September I was working with Fairytales as part of my tarot practice. I reread all of the Grimm Fairytales, and I reread all the Fairytales from Charles Perrault, which are the most famous French fairytales. You know, all the classics, Little Red Riding Hood, Puss in Boots, Thumbelina, all of those. It was actually so much fun to reread my childhood's fairy tales and to work with them as part of my tarot practice. And I actually decided to share that with you in the month of September. I thought instead of keeping it for myself, I might as well share it with you guys. So what I did is that every month of September, I created a tarot spread inspired by a different fairy tales, and I shared that tarot spread on my community page on YouTube and on my Instagram page. So if you haven't checked those out, I really invite you to, after you finish this video, to check it out. You'll find it, like I said, on my community page. You can use tarot or oracle, obviously, if you decide to try this for yourself. But I created a Puss in Boots inspired spread, a Sleeping Beauty inspired spread, we had a Little Red Riding Hood one, and the first one I did was Pinocchio. There were so many of you who tried those spreads on Instagram, who shared them with me, so thank you so much if you did that, because it was so sweet to see you try those spreads for yourself, to see your reading. Let's talk about decks, baby. We'll start with my fairy tales deck, because like I said, if you've not watched the previous books part, then go back. It's like 3 minutes. But pretty much I explained to you that I worked with the theme of fairy tales for all of September, and that I actually created fairy tales spread that I shared with you on my YouTube community page and on my Instagram page. And so of course I also worked with fairy tale inspired tarot and oracle, because it made sense, right? So the first deck I want to mention, and that's the deck I used for all of the spreads that I shared, that I created. I used this particular deck, which is the Land of Stories Tarot. So this is probably my most used tarot deck for September. It caught my heart. I'm so in love with this deck. It's so cute. I'm obsessed with it. And for my specific work around fairy tales, it was perfect. Let me tell you, perfect. This is an indie deck. I got mine on Etsy. I'll leave the link for it down below. It was free shipping to where I live. It was super quick to arrive. Fantastic shop from Vermillon Collection. I love their decks. I've already ordered some other ones because I was super impressed with their customer service and with like how fast it shipped and with the quality of that deck. So I actually ordered some other decks from them, but I've not received them yet. But this particular deck, the Land of Stories Tarot, if you are following me on Instagram, you would have seen quite a few pictures of it, because like I said, I couldn't put it down for the month of September. Here are the backs. They are pink, shiny, super cute, we love it. So this is a fairy tale inspired tarot deck, but it's fairy tales done in a way that I think is very approachable. I can get a little overwhelmed with decks that do fairy tales where every single card is a different fairy tale, because it's just like when we have animal decks and every single card is a different animal. It can get a little bit overwhelming, like too much information, and my brain doesn't know how to compute. The way this works perfectly for me as a fairy tale inspired deck is that the major arcana are inspired by specific fairy tales, like we have Pinocchio for the magician, which I love. We have Little Red Riding Hood for justice, which is so clever, because yes, the whole story of Little Red Riding Hood is about justice, is about retribution, is about karma. So clever. I think one of the other majors is Alice in Wonderland. Like, there are also some Asian fairy tales which I didn't know about, but which the guidebook explains very succinctly, but it does give you the names of the different fairy tales from the major arcana. So I really appreciated that, because then I could go online and do some research. So I actually discovered new fairy tales thanks to this deck. And then the minors are set in a fairy tale world, but it doesn't reflect a specific fairy tale. And that for me makes this deck so user-friendly, so approachable, because it takes me in that magical world of Once Upon a Time, of my childhood books, of magic and witches, but it's still a functional tarot deck in the sense that it follows the RWS. If you are familiar with the system, you pick the deck up and off you go. It follows all the original symbolism of tarot, and it takes you into that very fairy tale world without imposing to you a specific story, apart from the major arcana, like I said. But the major arcana are so well chosen that it just makes sense. So I have fallen in love completely with this deck. It's super cute. It's such a good reader. The artwork is gorgeous. It was perfect for my fairy tale work. And I'm just sad to put it down now because I want to work with other things for the month of October. Obviously, it's the Halloween month, so we're gonna be bringing out the spooky decks. I'm gonna be sharing in October Halloween inspired tarot spreads on my Instagram page and on my community page. So if you haven't seen those out, keep an eye out. I really enjoyed it. I didn't want to put it down, but it's time to be working with another energy, and I'll probably pick it back up in a couple of months or so. The Oracle deck I loved pairing for my fairy tale work is an out of print Oracle. It's the Copper Rabbit illustration. It's an indie deck made by Copper Rabbit Illustrations, who has an Etsy page where she is, I think, an artist based in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. She has another deck out which is still in print, I believe. If you enjoy this particular artwork, check out her website. I leave it in the description box below. But this particular deck is out of print, I believe, because this was one of the first ones she did, I think, that were inspired by Inktober, and the prompts were very fairy tale like, and I've had this deck for 4 years now or 5 years, and the artwork just takes my heart. So this idea of going into a dark forest, fairies, dragons, poisonous apples, dwarfs, and ogres, it just speaks to my heart, right? It makes my inner child happy. There's something about it that transports me, that brings me so much joy, and at the same time that I find very intuitive and very insightful. So I loved using this particular oracle to tap into the fairy tale essence as well, and I just wanted to give it a quick shout out. Even though it's out of print, I'm sharing my favorites in this, and this is something that's been a favorite, so I wanted to mention it. Let's move on to a specific pairing that I absolutely loved before I got into my fairy tale work. But before I got into this little niche rabbit hole, I was loving this particular pairing for most of August, and you would have seen me mention this particular tarot deck a ton already on my channel because this is fantastic, and I think this might be one of my favorite releases of the year. This is the Symbolic Soul Tarot by Elisa Singer. I'm probably most likely butchering that, so I'm so sorry. This is a Los Carberos deck, so it's a mass market deck. It's fairly affordable, it's easy to find, and I'm in love with this deck. It's one of my most favorite finds of the year, and I've actually loved pairing it in the last couple of months with a French oracle deck which is called l'Oracle Médiéval et Merveilleux. This is a mass market deck. It translates to the medieval and fantastical oracle. You can find it on amazon.fr. I'll leave the link down below if you're curious. So first, the Symbolic Soul Tarot. This is a black and white deck with gold accent. First off, I need to tell you that for a Los Carberos deck, the quality is next level. Like, this is the best quality Los Carberos has done ever, in my opinion. I have never seen them do such nice quality. The cardstock is matte, have gold accents on every single card. It just feels indie for a mass market price, which we're super here for. The artwork I find super beautiful. I really enjoy this particular artist's work. I think they have done a Marseille, which is indie, called Le Tarot de l'Étoile Cachée, I believe, which I really want, but it's indie prices, so we're saving up for that. But this particular deck, the Symbolic Soul Tarot, is more RWS inspired, and the artwork is definitely unique. It has its own style. What makes this deck special is that it's very quirky and has a ton of personality. Even though the artwork is black, white and gold, which could make it seem very grown up, very elegant, very serious, almost grown up like. When you take the time and you look at each card, you discover so many Easter eggs in the cards, so many hidden symbolism, some of them very alchemical and occult, and some of them just plain silly. Like on the world card, you will see someone on the toilet. So the mix between very occult-like esoteric symbolism with the super strong personality of the artist and the deck makes this deck one of the most interesting decks I've used recently. I never get bored with this because there is always a little detail, a little symbol, a little something I've not noticed, which takes my reading to the next level. I love that some of the characters look almost puppet-like, that gives another layer to the meaning, and there's just so much there to get into. It's whimsical, it's quirky, it's sometimes a little bit absurd in the best way possible, but yet because it still follows the RWS, for me it's still very practical reader, and it does take you into this strange world. And I need to thank Sylvia over at Fairlight Tarot. If you're not following Sylvia, I'll leave the link to her YouTube channel in the description box. She's fantastic tarot tuber. Go and check her out and tell her I say hi. But I need to thank her for first showing that particular deck on her channel, because it's thanks to her that I discovered it, and for letting me know that in the guidebook, in the Los Scarabeo guidebook, obviously Los Scarabeo, you have different languages for each of the card, but at the end of the guidebook you actually have a section called Behind the Curtain. It's like 3 pages, but it gives you some little bits of information about the symbolism in each card. So for example, Queen of Cups, which is right here, in this particular Behind the Curtains part of the guidebook, which gives you explanation about some of the card symbolism, it says that for the Queen of Cups, the usual cherub has been transformed into a nice octopus, an animal more suited to keep company with a mermaid, and is also symbolically appropriate because it knows how to adapt thanks to the intelligence of its heart. So in that particular part of the guidebook, it gives you some explanation as to the choices of symbolism from the artist, which I thought was a really nice touch, and I almost missed it because it's literally at the end of each section for each language. Like you have your regular card description for each of the suits, and you get to like 10 of Swords, Page, Knight, Queen, King, and then I thought it was gonna switch to the other language, but no, you still have a couple of pages. And I would have missed that if Sylvia hadn't told me to check it out, so I wanted to mention it here in case you guys have this deck and you've not seen it too, because I thought it was a nice addition and I enjoyed to read what it had to say. The deck I loved to pair the most with this is L'Oracle Médiéval et Merveilleux. Like I said, it's a mass market French deck, so you can find it on Amazon.fr. I'll put the link down below. So this is inspired by the fantastical medieval world, like all the fantastical creatures that were in medieval grimoires, so the unicorns and the griffins and the like. And this particular deck paired with the Symbolic Soul Tarot, chef's kiss. I'm usually shit at deck pairing, okay? Deck pairing is not my forte. I wish I was good at it. I wish that kind of particular way to pair, that particular incline towards working with deck was an ability I had. I don't really have that. I'm not a deck pairer. If you enjoy beautiful deck pairings, follow Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. I've just talked about her. I'll leave the link to her channel down below. She does fantastic deck pairings. I, on the other hand, never come up with anything good. But this, somehow, one night I was playing around with them and then I put them together and I was like, ah! It was like the angels came down, curtains open, and it was just pure bliss. So I'm super happy I discovered this deck pairing because they speak so well together. They have this earthy, medieval kind of ancestral vibe, but both with a very strong personality, very strong sometimes sense of humor, at least a sense of like quirkiness, which I love. And I really enjoy those two. Obviously, you don't have to use them together. This Oracle deck on its own is fantastic. It's one of my favorite French decks ever. I love the artwork, I love the colors. If you are right now in the Northern Hemisphere, you're probably getting into autumn. So this is definitely getting, you know, autumn vibes. I can imagine myself drinking pumpkin spice latte and pulling from this. Except where I live, it's 25 degrees Celsius to 30. I'm already sweating even though I'm only wearing a t-shirt and shorts. And it's more iced tea than pumpkin spice latte. Let me just put it out there. But in my fantasy, this is where I'd like to be, you know, for a day. And then I want to go back to tropical sunshine. But this is a great deck. I find the keywords very different and unique. There's a lot of them who are specific, obviously, to the medieval world. And in the guidebook is really cool because it's poems. Every single card meaning is not a card meaning, it's guidance through a poem, in French, obviously. So I would recommend using Google Translate. It might be a little bit harder to come to translate considering they are poems, so that's usually harder to translate and make sense when you're translating in another language. But honestly, the artwork is so intuitive that you don't necessarily need the card meanings to understand what's going on, because I find the artwork just super intuitive. The cards speak for themselves. Bravery, and we have the griffin, and all very strong keywords, all very strong archetypes and choices that make for a really powerful, deep Oracle deck, and paired with this was just such a joy. I want to give a shout out to two more Oracle decks, mass markets, both of them, that I've been truly enjoying in the last couple of months. I picked it back up from my tarot shelf in August, and it has been living on my bedside table ever since August. But I've had this deck for actually a lot longer. This is The Power of Surrender cards by Judith Orloff. This is an older Oracle deck. It's been out for I don't even know how long, but you'll see from the artwork, giving a little bit like nostalgic vibes because the artwork is photo generated, the layout is giving like earlier Oracle decks, maybe not so modern like we get now. You know, this doesn't have any foiling or any edging or anything like that, but it's great, it works, and that's all that matters. This is a true and tested deck that for me always come through when I need it. So the Power of Surrender cards, as you can imagine, is focused on surrendering, on letting go. And on each card you get a different prompt or invitation to surrender something. And then you get a little bit of a message on the card as well to help you understand why this particular surrendering or letting go would help you in your life. So there's no guidebook, this is what you get. You pull the card, your message is on the card, which I love, especially for when I'm pulling cards at night, when I'm finishing up my day and I just want to get that message. I love those decks where everything is on the card. This is definitely a powerful little deck. It may seem a little bit old school and maybe not the prettiest deck out there, but it's one of those that work and that's gonna hit you every time. If you feel stuck, if you feel in a rut, if you feel like you're facing a blockage or a challenge and you don't know what's causing you to not be able to move forward, this will tell you exactly what you need to know. Whether it's something related to your career, to your relationships, your family life, your spiritual life, love, whatever it is, when you need to know the tea, when you need to know what you're not seeing, this will call you out big time, but it's done in a way that it's simple, straightforward, and helpful. And I love that. And if you want to, and whenever I've been wanting to go deeper, I would pull a card from this particular deck, and then I'd pull tarot cards on top of that to go a little bit deeper. So for example, let's say I was asking, what is stopping me from making progress in my life right now? And I was to get surrender negative thinking. Okay, call me out. And it says, you have control over your thoughts. When negative thoughts surface, say thank you for sharing and quickly refocus on positive affirmations. So this obviously would be asking us to let go of negative thinking, which is a good starting point. But then you could, and I've done that, get a tarot deck and pull some tarot cards on top of that to expand. So this is almost sometimes acting for me as a starting point of like, okay, I need to let go of negative thinking. And then I would get my tarot deck out and pull a card for, okay, why is negative thinking something that is so ingrained in me? How could I let go of it? What is something that could support me into replacing negative thinking with positive one? What could be an anchor card to tap into when I feel myself slipping back into negative thinking? You get the gist. Like, I would pull tarot cards to expand on that particular message and almost create a spread around this particular starting point. And I've really enjoyed this practice of starting with this and then pulling more tarot and oracle cards on top. But I've also enjoyed just pulling for this one card, and there you get your message and off you go to sleep, and that's it. And I've used this deck for others as well, and it has read them to filth. The audacity of this deck, be warned. If you don't want your feelings to get hurt, don't get this. But if you want to get the real tea, this is great. It's very affordable. I think when I bought it a few years ago, it was not even 15 euros at the time. I don't know how much it is now, but I can't imagine it's very much more. Another fantastic mass market oracle deck that I've been truly enjoying in the last couple of months, the Lantern Oracle. I know I'm super late to the game. We're used to that. I'm always like a few months behind on everybody else. Just because one, it gets time to arrive to me, usually decks, and two, I'm kind of my own little world, guys. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm usually doing my own thing, and then by the time the hype is done, I'm like, ooh, that looks good. I'm just living in my own delusional fantasy, okay? But the Lantern Oracle, this has been out for, I think, over a year, maybe even two. I finally got my hands on it, and this is amazing. Believe the hype. I know when it came out, it was very hyped and there were a lot of people who said it was fantastic. I concur. If you're looking for an oracle deck that will help you go deep, that will help guide you on your shadow work, on your exploration of self, on your exploration of your soul, this is it. It's really good, I think, and the structure is very well done. The guidebook is very well written. There are different categories of cards. We have Maiden, Mother, and Crone cards, which corresponds to, for me, not necessarily like stages of life, because I've pulled the Crone cards the most. I'm not on my Crone stage yet, but it's more about, for me, reading those different aspects of the card as like the evolution of the situation you're in. Like, are you at the early stages, middle stages, or end stages of this particular situation? For example, that's the way you could read them. Like I said, the guidebook is really well written, and the choices of keywords and of themes are perfect if you are looking for a deck, like I was saying, for introspection, for going deep. This is not the kind of deck I would use for divination or for like prediction or anything like that. No. This is for journaling, for any kind of like introspective work, for meditation, if you want to do even some path walking, things like that. This is really good for going deep. And the artwork. Can we talk about the artwork? Oh, I die. It's so beautiful. It's even more beautiful in person. The cardstock is matte, so it really makes the colors pop out. And I'm so in love with that artwork. I find it so beautiful. So I've really enjoyed working with this particular deck. I've really enjoyed going deep with this deck, and I've only scratched the surface, because you know how it's like sometimes with oracle cards, you get the same cards over and over and over again. So you don't end up seeing most of the deck. So I think I'm gonna need a few months with this one to really get to know it properly. But all the pulls I've done so far, all the journaling I've done with this, all the work I've done with this so far has been super helpful, super insightful, and I don't have anything bad to say. If you're looking for something to help empower you, to help you on your path to shadow work, but also help empower yourself, give you some tools to work through your shit and come out the other side feeling a lot stronger, this is great. And it's, like I said, mass market, easily found, great guidebook, beautiful artwork. We love it. The last couple of decks I wanted to mention are a lot more nature focused, and that's because I was using them a lot for Virgo season. So obviously September, we were in Virgo season. Virgo is an earth sign, and it's a time where I like to connect with earthy decks, with decks that help me ground. I love working with nature in general. It's a big part of my spiritual practice. I am very lucky to live somewhere where nature is part of everyday life. I can go to the ocean, I can go to the forest, I'm very close to so much beautiful nature, and I'm super grateful for that. So my spiritual practice is very much focused on spending time in nature, on working with natural elements, plant ally, animal wisdom and all of that. And in the month of September especially, I was very called to working with decks that were bringing me back to that. I was doing my fairy tale fantasy and that was a lot of fun, but to help ground myself, especially in those moments where I was struggling a lot with my body, with like chronic health and pain and all of that, I always go back to nature decks to help me come back, to help me ground, because there is something to be said about when you are in a body that is in pain a lot, when you are in a body that is not comfortable, when you are in a body where doing things is not as easy as someone else might find them. It's easy to disconnect. It's easy to disassociate because it's not comfortable to be in the present moment, right? So when you're in pain, it's easy to just want to be somewhere else. But it's also not conducive to being grounded and to being present and to be able to communicate with our body and ourselves. So in those times, I usually find myself being drawn to working with nature inspired decks, because they really help me come back to myself. And the first one I've been absolutely loving in the last couple of months is a Naturescape Tarot. You guys, I'm in love. There's something so special and moving and very smart about the Naturescape Tarot. This is a deck that was created, I believe, by another tarot content creator. I have put this deck up on Make Playing Cards, and I actually ordered this deck a year ago. And I only received it this year. So this deck traveled the world for a good year before it arrived to me, but that's the way it goes when you live on a little island in the middle of nowhere. I'm used to that by now. This is a fully nature-inspired deck because each card depicts a different landscape that was chosen by the creator, and every single choice makes sense. Like the fact that there's no humans in this. When I first saw this deck a year ago, I fell in love completely. And even though it took a really long time to come to me, it arrived at the perfect timing, because I kind of had forgotten some of the cards. Obviously, a year later you forget, and so to rediscover it when I went through it and to use it, it was just something clicked. There's something very special about this deck, something very poetic and very raw. The choices are so intelligent, and yet this is super intuitive. Like, this is the perfect deck if you are kind of sick of all the tarot decks you might find, the RWS, Marseille, Toth, whatever. You need a little bit of a palette cleanser. You need something that's gonna open your mind's eye, and that's gonna expand your vision, that's gonna tune into your intuition, that's gonna help with spirit communication or any kind of channeling or anything like that. This is really good because, like I said, there's nobody on the cards. It's fully intuitive. It's fully about connecting to the essence of nature and of the essence of that particular tarot archetype. And for me, this is truly one of the best intuitive decks I own. And it really acts as a palette cleanser, like I was saying. This is perfect for, really want to tap into my third eye. I want to let my heart speak. I want to get out of my own way almost. This is the deck I navigate for that, and I've been absolutely adoring it for August, September, and this is one I don't see myself put it down. I still want to use it for the rest of the year, so you probably see this more in future videos to come, because I've just enjoyed it so much. Also, can we talk about those bags? Girl. Hello, tropical realness. I'm here for that, obviously. The last deck I want to mention that had followed me along for a Virgo season, that was such a joy, is the Genius Garden Tarot. So this is a indie deck by Jessie Huttenberg. Jessie actually sent this deck to me so I've done a whole video all about this deck, which I'll put in the cards somewhere and I'll put in the description box if you want to see my thoughts, if you want to see a full walkthrough, my favorite cards, and I even read to you parts of the guidebook. Here I'll just give you a quick sneak peek, so if you're curious, check out my review. But this was such a good surprise. I had been following this deck creation along on Instagram, and when Jessie got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to receive a copy for review, I jumped at the opportunity because there is something about the artwork that really called to me. As you can see, this deck is fully painted, so it's something that really called to me because right now we're in a world where we're seeing so many computer generated artwork, which is fine. I enjoy that. I have a lot of decks that are computer generated and things like that, and it's an artwork I enjoy. But we're also seeing a lot of AI generated decks, which I won't get into now because that's not the purpose of this video. Some of them I enjoy, some of them I don't. That's where I'm at with AI decks. What I will say is that I'm a bit oversaturated with the look of them. Right now it feels like that's all there is on Kickstarter, bar a few exceptions of course. So to see a fully painted deck, it was just a nice refreshing aspect that I really enjoyed. On top of that, Jessie's words in the guidebook are so healing, so gentle. All the descriptions in the guidebook are written from a place of compassion, of kindness, of gentleness, and you can feel that intention in the deck, and not just in the artwork but in the guidebook as well. The fact that this is called the Genius Garden Tarot, it's because it's been designed to help us connect to our own genius and to the place within ourselves where we can grow our creativity, where we can grow our empowerment, and all of that idea really is infused in the artwork and in the guidebook, and it was exactly what I needed and I've really been enjoying it. So again, if you want to see my review, it's gonna be in the description box. Here you have it, my friends. These were all of my favorites for September, August, a little bit of July, whenever I did my last faves. I can't remember. I hope you enjoyed seeing them with me. I hope you enjoyed spending that time together. I for sure am super grateful that you were here. Thank you so much for being here, for watching, liking, commenting. I appreciate you so much. Like I said, I'm starting to feel better now. I've come out of my hermit's cave, so watch out for a lot of fun stuff coming to my channel. I've got a lot of things in the work in my little cauldron, so I hope you're excited for that. Watch out for my Halloween spreads that I'll be sharing on my community page, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll be sharing them there as well. And until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!